Hey there. So, you've probably heard the title business analyst thrown around, right? It can sound a little corporate and vague. But what does a BA actually do? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and show you why they are absolutely essential for turning a great idea into a real-world success. It really all boils down to this one question. Think about it. Every company, big or small, has these amazing ideas, these huge goals. But there's this massive gap between a brainstorming session and a finished product that people can actually use. That gap? That's exactly where a business analyst works. They're the bridge that connects the vision to the reality.
All right, so to really get this, we're going to walk through the journey a BA takes on pretty much any project. We'll start with why they're called a change agent. Then, look at how they always start with the why. After that, we'll dive into how they uncover the real problem, design the solution, and finally, help bring it all to life.
Okay, first up, at their absolute core, a business analyst is an agent of change. I mean, that's their whole purpose, to get in there, understand what a business really needs, find the roadblocks, and then help clear the path for solutions that actually move the needle.
You know, a really great way to picture a BA is as a T-shaped professional. That vertical part of the T? That's their deep-down expert knowledge of business analysis, all the tools and techniques. But that horizontal bar is just as crucial. That represents their incredible ability to talk to everyone, from the CEO down to the software developers, and make sure everybody's on the same page. So where does a BA even begin? Well, they don't just jump in and start trying to fix things. Nope, they start with the most important question of all. Why? Why are we even doing this? It's all about making sure that any change, any project, perfectly lines up with the company's big picture strategy. This step alone saves so much wasted time and money down the road.
And they have some really cool tools to do this. One of their go-tos is something called a VMOST analysis. Think of it like a GPS for the business strategy. It helps them break down a company's goals from the 30,000-foot view all the way down to a specific project, making sure that what they're working on is actually taking the company in the right direction.
So it all starts with the V, and that stands for vision. This is the big, dreamy North Star for the company. It's not about the nitty-gritty, it's about that ultimate destination. Where does the organization want to be in the long run? Now, a vision is great, but you need to make it more concrete. That's where M for mission comes in. The mission defines the company's core purpose. It answers the question, what do we do every day to make that vision a reality?
And to make that mission happen, you need O for objectives. These are the specific, measurable goals you have to hit. They're not vague ideas, they're the real, tangible checkpoints along the journey.
Then you have S for strategy. This is the high-level game plan. It's the route you're going to take to hit all those objectives. It's the how you're going to win.
And finally, all of that leads us right here, to T for tactics. These are the actual projects, the specific activities that bring the strategy to life. A business analyst's project lives right here at the T. But as you can see, it's tied all the way back up to that huge company vision. It all connects. Okay, so once the why is rock solid, the BA switches gears and puts on their detective hat. Seriously, their job now is to dig deep, investigate what's really going on, and define the actual problem that needs to be solved, not just the symptoms everyone's complaining about.
And you can't possibly understand a problem without talking to the people involved. That means figuring out who the stakeholders are. And a stakeholder is, quite simply, anyone, any person, any group who's going to be affected by this change or has an interest in its outcome.
And trust me, this list is almost always bigger than you'd think. It's not just your boss and the people using the new software. It could be customers, other managers, employees in different departments, government regulators, even your competitors could be considered stakeholders. They all have a piece of the puzzle.
But a great BA doesn't just make a list. They get strategic. They often use something like this power/interest grid to figure out how to work with each person. For example, if someone has a lot of power but isn't that interested in the project's details, your goal is just to keep them satisfied. But if someone has high interest but not a lot of power, you make sure you keep them informed. It's all about smart communication.
So, after all that detective work, the BA now puts on their architect hat. This is the phase where they take everything they've learned and start designing the blueprint for a solution that's actually going to fix the problem and meet the business's needs. A classic tool they use here is called gap analysis, and it sounds fancy, but it's beautifully simple. Step 1. You figure out exactly where you are right now, the current state. Step 2.
You define exactly where you want to be, the future state. And step 3, you just identify all the gaps between the two. And boom, those gaps are what your project needs to build.
Now, the blueprint itself is made up of requirements, and it's so important to know there are 2 main types. Functional requirements are about what the system must do, the features, like a user must be able to click this button to submit a form. Then you have non-functional requirements. These are about how the system must be, things like how fast it needs to run, how secure it is, or how much data it can handle. You need both.
The BA's work also has to fit the way the solution is going to get built. In a traditional waterfall project, you do all the design work up front in one huge phase. But in more modern, agile approaches, you build and deliver the solution in smaller, incremental pieces, which means the BA is defining requirements a little bit at a time.
And in that agile world, this is a game changer. The BA helps manage what's called a product backlog. You can think of it as a giant, prioritized to-do list for the project. And that word, prioritized, is everything. It means the team is always working on building the most valuable piece of the puzzle first.
All right, the blueprint is done, the requirements are clear, now it's go time. Time to actually build this thing. But wait, the BA's job isn't over yet, not by a long shot. They play a super important role in making sure the solution rolls out smoothly and actually delivers on its promises.
During this whole implementation phase, the BA is kind of like the project's glue. They're helping with business readiness, which is just a way of saying they're making sure the people and the processes are actually ready for this new thing. In an agile project, they're constantly working with the team to get the next batch of requirements ready. In a waterfall project, they're the ones getting that crucial sign-off from stakeholders to move to the next big step.
So look, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. A business analyst isn't just a person who shows up at the beginning to write down some notes. They are the constant thread that runs through the entire life cycle of a change, from that very first spark of an idea all the way through to the final product delivering value. And that kind of brings us to a final thought. This way of thinking, of starting with why, digging for the real problem, and carefully designing a solution, it doesn't just apply to giant companies. So think about your own world, your job, your team, maybe even a personal project. What change around you could use a guide to get from just an idea to a real-life success? Thanks for digging into this with me.